All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Pete.
The planning board meeting, Wednesday, September 28th. Looks like we have a quorum, so we can get started. Todd, if you want to do a roll call or however you want to handle that.
Oh, sure. I'll take a roll of the members present. I'll begin with the chair, Peter.
I am here.
Mark.
I'm here.
James.
Here.
And Michael. Eric. Is Eric in? I don't see. Okay, so Eric is present, is absent at the moment. And Bob, you're here?
Yep.
So good. And with that, roll call is taken.
All right, so first on the agenda is the town planner report. But I know you mentioned to me, Todd, we want to set the fall meeting schedule early in the meeting so that if we need to do anything with public hearings, we know where to put them. So do you want to just do that first?
You mean in terms of setting the meeting agenda, or
Yeah,
we can set schedule first. My report is not exactly extremely lengthy, but there's important content that needs to be shared. So
all right, sure. Yeah, let's just do the meeting schedule so then we don't in case anything needs a meeting, we at least have that.
sure.
So I think typically, I'm just looking at the calendar. So typically we do the second and fourth week of each month, although I believe in November and December, we just do one meeting because of the holidays.
Yes.
Although sometimes we have to put in another meeting if we need to. So let's see, that would be the 12th and 26th of October. And then perhaps the 9th of November and the 7th of December.
Yep.
It looks to be right. Yes.
Those are all fine with me. I don't know if anyone has any. I know Eric mentioned a conflict that he had at some point. I can't remember which date it was in an email, but I'm good with those dates unless anyone has any objections.
As far as I go, my time is your time, so all of these will be fine for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then if someone doesn't mind making a motion, we can just lock that in.
You want the specific dates or just?
Do we need the specific dates?
Specificity is best in this case. We can do all
Give them
four as a
to me.
batch, yes, but
Once more, so it was October 12th.
12th and 26th, November 9th, and December 7th.
Yes.
All at 7 p.m. I think is what we can do.
yes.
I will make a motion to set the fall early winter planning board schedule for 7 p.m. on October 12th, the October 26th, November 9th, and December 7th.
I will second that.
Okay. Roll call vote. Peter,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Eric, I believe he's absent, but I still must ask. And motion carries.
On that note, when does the governor's order allowing us to have remote meetings expire?
As far as I'm aware, I haven't got a distinct end date yet, and it's likely to continue. But I'll keep you all apprised as it develops.
Okay, yeah, because they keep threatening to. I mean, they've threatened to end it, and then they extend it, and then.
Yeah, it's always this ball's up in the air continually.
Okay.
Be nice to get together in 3D again someday.
Yeah, agreed. I still haven't met most of you fine folks yet. Not in person. Not in person.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So get that out of the way. Yeah. So Todd, if you want to move forward with the planner report.
Sure. So as it stands now, the fall, I'm going to start with green communities first. The fall batch is due in all but 11 or 12 days at present. I just recently received an email from the state regarding that. I don't have any items immediately present that really demand to be written for as of right yet. However, I'll see what can be done in short order, if anything, and I'll make sure to put in for those. In terms of items that are found later on the agenda here, most notably, you'll find for discussion of zoning bylaw amendments and regulation. Really, that's contingent upon what can be delivered from the master plan committee. Because as you know, most of the amendments that would be brought forth by the planning board, we really need to have that master plan deliverable in place. And the recommendations contained within that master plan would take the iteration of whatever zoning bylaw amendments we would assemble here. So I don't anticipate any zoning bylaw amendments here for the fall. So
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
yeah, that's a super tall order. I mean, I don't like to ever predict the future, but my crystal ball is good enough to predict that, I think.
It's an excellent crystal ball.
Well, so good. Aside from that, we do have some of the driveway sureties that need to be released. Keep in mind, this is batch 2 of 3, if I recall, because we're 18 in total, and we elected to do them in batches of 6. Well, Ninochka and I kind of navigated that just to make the minutes a little bit cleaner and easier to decipher. Aside from that, really just getting my grips around all of the major projects that were in utero when I took residence here. Noticeably, I went and visited one of the larger 40B projects just down the street there, and I got to see exactly what the office space looked like today, and what will be taken down, what will not be, and what driveway treatments will be done, etc. They might be coming back, just so you guys know, they might be going back to the Zoning Board of Appeal to amend that particular comprehensive permit just to deal with items relating to parking. Aside from that, there's not a whole heck of a lot of new news yet, but I expect that to change in the near future.
Todd, can you talk about the implications of that project on 40B development in town going forward?
Say that again, sir?
Can you talk about the 540 Main Street in terms of
Yes,
what the implications are to future 40B development in
Yes.
town?
gladly.
I believe that was a pretty big milestone.
It was a massive, I would say I won't call it a triumphant mark, but it's a very substantial development. With the 540 Main Street and the units that were just recently certified by the Department of Housing and Community Development, I heard from the state agent there earlier this week. That brings us to a little over 17%, close to 17.25% out of the 10% we need in order to be granted safe harbor from all comprehensive permits. Looking at this over the trajectory of new building permits that I received from the building department, we will maintain safe haven from any comprehensive permits going to the future for likely a good 15 to 20 years. And that's if the current development rate holds true. So nearing a generation, this will keep us in safe harbor from comprehensive permits in any adverse development in that regard. So I hesitate from calling it a momentous occasion, but it's certainly something that's worth celebrating. Absolutely. And it shows us to be an excellent example and the paragon of what we should be for a community of our ability and our size. So we're going to be a good role model for our area neighbors, and that's something that we should celebrate at some time in the future. It would be worth it.
Not to say that affordable housing is still not a very important element of future
Yes.
development in Bolton, but at least it's within our purview at this point. The
Yes.
purview of the town, of the municipality.
Exactly right. And just making sure that as folks decide to stay in town and prefer to age in place going into the future, it's good to know that there are possible locations for folks to age in place, move out of that house that's a little bit too big for their current conditions, and still keep them near their neighbors and their friends and family. It's something that tends to be underappreciated, but it's something that needs to be said. But that's all I got.
All right, great. Thanks very much.
Sure.
So we'll move on. Just a note for anyone on the meeting, if you're here for the special, the public hearing that is scheduled for 7:30 for 0 Main Street, the applicant has requested a continuance until, I believe, the second meeting in October, which we will officially do at that time. I'm just saying that in case anyone's on the meeting waiting for that. That's going to be continued at the applicant's request. Okay, so we have these additional 6 driveway sureties, similar to what we did last time, Todd. I assume these are all good. There's no concerns from anyone, yourself or anyone in town hall about these?
Yeah, everyone, Nanochka let me know that these 6 here, she gave me a total of 18. As we decided last meeting, we decided to break these up into batches of 6 just to make life a little easier. But these 6 here, they're all in good standing with Nanochka, and they're all due to be returned. So these ones here, I have no issues whatsoever with this batch of 6.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. If there's any questions, if not, we need to make a motion on each individual as we done last time. So a bit of a administrative work here, which we can do unless anyone has any concerns.
I'll go ahead and make a motion, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, Mike. Appreciate it.
I will make a motion to release the driveway surety for 58 Oak Trail, lot 6.
Second.
Very good. Roll call vote. I'll begin with Peter,
Aye.
Mark,
All right.
James,
All right.
Michael,
Aye.
Eric, I saw you came in,
Aye.
and motion carries.
I will make a motion to release the driveway surety for 136 Oak Trail.
Second.
Very good. Roll call vote. I'll begin with Peter,
Aye.
Mark,
All right.
James,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Excellent. Motion carries.
I will make a motion to release the driveway surety for Norse Road, lot 6, number 128.
Second.
Very good. Roll call vote. I'll begin with Peter,
Aye.
Mark,
All right.
James,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries.
I will make a motion to release the driveway surety for 4 Bush Mill, lot 3, number 159.
Second.
Roll call vote. I'll begin with Peter,
Aye.
Mark,
All right.
James,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries.
I will make a motion to release the driveway surety for 69 Annie Moore, 4E/7.
Second.
Very good. We'll begin with Peter,
Aye.
Mark,
All right.
James,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries.
I will make a motion to release the driveway surety for Green Road, lot 2, number 350.
Second.
Excellent. I'll begin with Peter,
Aye.
Mark,
All right.
James,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Excellent. With that, all 6 are completed. Thank you very much.
All right, great. Okay, so we're right on time for our first public hearing at 7:15 for continuation of Backland Lot Special Permit, Common Driveway Special Permit, Christopher Slade of 62 South Bolton Road. Not seeing anyone here. Todd, did you hear anything from the applicant or their engineer on this?
I have not heard a word from Mr. Slade, I'm sad to say.
Okay, maybe we'll just wait a couple minutes just in case someone's having trouble connecting for some reason.
This was continued from a while back, right?
Yes,
I'm trying to think.
this one began, I believe, sometime in April. I want to say April,
Yeah.
in the early part of spring. I haven't encountered this particular applicant thus far, but I've reached out to them before and they haven't replied. It's been numbs the word since.
He was going to get back with an engineering review of drainage on the driveway, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I remember seeing that within peer review.
Yeah, it was something like that. They didn't originally want to do, they were basically saying, well, it's a existing path. We don't have to do any drainage calculations. It's flat. It's not going to be an issue. And I think we eventually convinced them that they needed to do something. There was some reluctance, but yeah, I haven't heard anything, haven't seen anything Valerie didn't mention anything to me about it, so. I don't know, Todd, is it appropriate if, is it appropriate to just continue that to our next meeting? Or I know there's usually a time frame where we have to act before
Yeah.
the applicant, they have to give us approval if it's longer. I don't know.
Yeah.
About that.
I mean, I would advise keeping, since I haven't interacted with this particular applicant yet, I would be reticent to say to close the hearing and just vote on it. I don't think that's quite appropriate yet. I would say we can continue this, and I'll try to reach out to the applicant and see if they're willing to give us something to respond with. I want to see if there's a pulse on this particular application before I go ahead and sign its death warrant, I'd say.
Yeah. 'Cause
Well, I
think the
believe-
Sorry, I think the last time they asked for a continuance, they asked for it like out well in advance. Like, can we do it in the fall? So it's possible they forgot about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I can reach out to them and see if there's anything there, and we can go from there, I believe.
Okay, yeah, sorry, Bob, for cutting you off.
No, the last I had seen was there was an email from the engineer stating basically what you said, Pete, that the perks of the soil adjacent to the driveway were perfectly acceptable and it didn't justify drainage calculations. And then in response to our comments, he came back, and I can't recall the medium with which he came back, saying that there would be an engineering review to provide more definition.
Mhm.
And I don't believe I've seen that. I don't think anybody's seen it.
Yeah, that's news to me. I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, would you recommend, Todd, continuing it to our next meeting or a later meeting, depending on what you think,
I would recommend, we do have a couple of scenic hearings that are coming up. So I would advise, if we continue it, which I would recommend, that we continue it to either 11/9 or possibly 12/7. I think 11/9 would be a good sweet spot, I would say.
Is that still within our period to act on it?
Well, the period to act on it is after close of hearing predominantly. So we have 60 days after close of hearing to act on special permits.
Okay, I thought there was a time frame from when they submit and then we continue it, or they agree to continue it over a period of time.
They would need to be present. They would need to be present for that. For this here, this is effectively without an advocate or an agent representing this, we can continue this.
Okay.
I mean, I'll check on the specifics, but I'm quite sure that's exactly what it needs.
Okay.
okay, yeah, let's do that.
Okay, I will make a motion to continue the backland lot special permit and common driveway permit for Christopher Slade of 62 South Bolton Road until November 9th at 7:15 p.m.
Very good.
Second.
Excellent. Roll call. I'll begin with Peter.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
James.
Aye.
Michael.
Hi.
Eric.
Aye.
And just to make sure, I will check the regulations to make sure that everything's on the up and up. And if anything needs to be adjusted, I'll bring that up at the next meeting 2 weeks from now.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so as I mentioned, the next hearing scheduled for 7:30 is going to be continued, but we'll wait until 7:30 to do that.
Yes.
And then we're going to have some time to kill here. So the only other thing I see on the agenda, Todd, discussion of regulation recommendations.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to, get into that a little bit now, or we have some time.
Yeah, we do have a little bit of time. I won't say to kill, but we have some time to fill. The important thing to keep in mind is that, as Bob and I discussed earlier, discussing any future, or at least zoning bylaw amendments for this fall season is, as I made a joke before with Bob, it's not cart before horse, it's person before cart before horse. It's far too premature to have that discussion. And also, if we were to go rogue in some crazy, crazy world and actually go ahead and bring forth a zoning bylaw amendment, we run the risk of that being counter to the recommendations that are going to be forthcoming from the master plan draft. So what's to do anything in terms of zoning bylaw amendments now wouldn't be just brash. It'd be something akin to planning malpractice, I would say. It's just supremely unwise, and I wouldn't advocate for doing anything to that extent. That said, once we meet with the master plan steering committee, which Bob and I will be there literally this time tomorrow night, we'll be seeing and revivifying that committee as best we can, taking the people that are still engaged and active, and then reformulating that, and then breathing some new life into it and carrying it forward. And we met with Bob and I met with the with BSC, the Heather Gould from BSC, the agent that they paired with us, and she's shown us some fairly exciting outreach tools that should help with the project. And we can keep some of what the committee's already done, and we can dust off some of the items that are pretty stale in terms of outreach, because quite a lot has changed in the past 32, 33 months. And we can breathe some life into that, get some new distillations from all of that data, and then act on that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this master plan committee works, because if the outreach is done properly, this could be something quite special in terms of master plans. And I'm quite excited to see that it's going forward. Aside from that, if anyone has any wish list items or any sort of topic they would like to see some extra attention drawn to, if they would like me to glean some data for them, I'd be happy to tear into the census plates and see what I can get, or I can do some further research on those individual items. So if anyone has any ideas that they think are of highlighted importance, just reach out to me now or later. Or if a lightning bolt of an idea hits you at 4 a.m, you can text me if you really want to, but I probably won't get back to you 2 a.m. Okay.
Hey, Todd, if I recall correctly, Erica had put together prior to Valerie's period as town planner, a list of things that needed to be thought about, not necessarily zoning articles, but a number of other things that popped up as a result of hearings and so forth. And then Valerie had augmented and amended that list. And I don't know where that list is. Pete, I don't know whether, have you seen that?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say, I remember seeing the one that we were looking at earlier this year with Valerie. I could probably dig it up, but I don't recall off the top of my head.
I remember speaking with Valerie about the master plan steering. She mentioned that list, but she didn't let me know exactly where that was. And I tore into everything on the drive we had here, including the Dropbox. I didn't see it, but I will reach out to Valerie, and she's been really helpful and super great. And she's only next door, so she's been extremely helpful in getting me plugged into all the projects as they are now. So I'll go and I'll acquire that list in the next day, maybe 2, and I'll tear into that right away and see exactly.
Yeah, and if you could
what we can
shoot
do.
that out to us, I mean, no deliberation, but just information for the committee.
Yes. Yes.
So frankly, I haven't seen it in a long time,
Mhm.
and it'd be kind of interesting to see how that aligns with some of the current thinking.
Yeah, and I think
I know there are a couple things on. I mean, planning board had its own list separate from master planning, and it was more administrative sort of things, not big zoning initiatives or anything, but it was some of the things like tree clearing and trying to maintain better tree coverage and things like that are really those really are independent from what the master planning should be doing.
yeah, they are. And I saw on that idea, I saw in one of the planner listservs that are around. It's basically a bunch of planners chatting with each other over email and picking each other's brains. There was one for a tree inventory and seeing exactly what towns have a tree inventory process in place, and if people wanted to glean from that or copy from that. I think that would behoove Bolton exceptionally well, given our proclivity towards orchards and everything else. I think that would make sense if we could down the road. It'd probably kick off something to that effect. I think it would behoove us to do that, especially in terms of maintaining a green space inventory, which effectively that's what it would serve as. So these are exactly the kind of ideas I was trying to get down, because I do have some room in I set aside about an hour every day for certain projects that I think makes sense to do and have kind of the groundwork based off of. So that way, when folks ask me about them, I have some of the foundational work already done. And something like that would make a lot of sense, which is one of the reasons why I'm asking you guys now to see if you have any further kind of leads you want me to chase down. I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, I mean, the only other big one that I would have, and it was related to what we were talking about, the for like Century Mill or any of the developments that have extended on for a period of time,
Yeah.
would be to, at some regular interval, require that they reestimate the outstanding bond items and re-up that amount.
Agreed.
Which right now is kind of, I mean, the assumption is they bond it, construction takes a few years and they're done. So you don't have to worry a lot about inflation.
Yeah.
So something like Century Mill has kind of broken that mold, and over time, as we've released bond amounts, the amount that's remaining is no longer sufficient.
Yeah.
For what needs to be done.
Agreed. I think I mean, whatever's already been done, the cat's already out of that bag. There's no reason to beat that horse again. But
yeah, this is just more protecting us going forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So going forward, I think we should be much more hesitant to release bond and a little bit more thorough going forward to make sure that nothing like Century Mills happens in the future. That's something that an ounce of prevention is worth many, many pounds of pain.
But I think, one of the issues with that, with respect to Century Mill, the cost to complete of a project that is incomplete and requires maintenance having not been completed may well be beyond the cost of simply going forward and completing the project without that period of time. And I think doing a real sensible cost to complete for these projects that have significantly lagged in their bond period is really worthwhile.
Yeah.
Because, the town is at risk with this.
Yeah. Sorry, just jotting that down because it's an excellent idea. But I mean, that's, I was speaking to a couple of my colleagues, one of whom was my mentor, who was a planner for 36 years, and he's dealt with 4 or 5 similar failed subdivisions like this. And I've encountered one also in my previous position as well. There's an element to this which is really judicial in nature, which are the folks that reside in what is effectively, as we discussed before, in a legal lens, it's an active construction site. But at what point of dereliction does it cease to become an active construction site? That's a matter for land use council effectively. And at that point, it literally becomes a civil issue between the folks that are residing there and the failed development agent. And it somewhat ties our hands at the municipal level about to what degree are we able to insert ourselves, and to what degree do we have agency over elements within that. So it's a little bit more complex than frankly I would like, and I know for sure than the folks that live there would like. And I have endless sympathy to the folks that chose to buy into Bolton, and they had to deal with the developer that acted in this way. But it's a very difficult situation. It's going to involve me having rather extensive talks with town council to see exactly what our array of options are and what are the pros and cons to each, and which one I think best behooves this situation. So there's no easy answer here, and I don't like simple solutions to complicated problems. As a general rule, it tends not to work. But I'll be sure to keep everyone here in the loop as things move forward. But there is a whole heck of a lot of answers, by the way, right now. But when I find something, I'll be sure to share.
Todd, from a legal perspective, and I'm completely new to this business, municipal perspective, I'd be very interested in how one goes about amending a bond.
I mean, amending a bond, that's definitely an item that involves town council, because at that point it's really contract.
Would it be interesting to understand that? Because I think we're potentially faced with that.
I mean, yeah, I agree. That's likely, that's a probable outcome going forward. If nothing else, I can reach out to town council if Don says it's okay, and see if he can write us a quick little memo regarding what that process would entail. Not necessarily specifically how it interacts with Century Mills, but also in general. Just in general. Yeah, just so we know to expound upon that. I think that would help a lot. I agree.
And we already do something similar with the the engineer funds where we have those be replenished
Yeah, the 53,
periodically.
53G. Yeah.
So I don't know if we can use something similar to that.
I'm not sure. I know 53G accounts are a little bit tricky. We got someone coming in. They're a little bit tricky in that way. But this is the kind of thing that needs to be done completely procedurally bulletproof in the eyes process. So we really need to have town council there, at least holding the torch and guiding the path. Because without that, I don't want us to make a misstep and do something out of turn.
The alternative, though, is to have municipality holding the bag.
Fair point. Fair point. No, well said. But aside from that, that's really what I wanted to. That's really the conversation I wanted to have and make sure that it was clear with everyone on the board that for this fall round coming up, it doesn't really behoove us to draft any warrant articles in terms of zoning amendments. And actually, it could be counter to the city's needs, given that we don't have any recommendations for master plan yet. So I think the wiser course of action would be just to hold out until we get some guidance from master plan. And from there, make sure our zoning amendments are in resonance with what the master plan recommends. Does that make complete sense, or am I being a little weird?
That sounds good. Yeah, strangely, I can't find that. I'm looking through my email. I can't find that list we had that we were going back and forth.
I couldn't either.
Digging. I thought she had sent us out. I thought she had sent it out to us to kind of for us to kind of prioritize. But I don't know. I can't find it. I'll keep looking.
Yeah, I know when we were talking about the marijuana regulation, she mentioned it several times.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I'll give her a ring tomorrow, and provided I can get through to her, I'll see if she can kind of point me in that direction, and maybe she'll have it in her inbox and she can just forward it over to me. Either way, different ways to the same place, but I'll see what I can shake down from there.
But to your point, it would be nice to know if there are things on that list that clearly aren't strategic and wouldn't be impacted or impact the master plan recommendations, and get on with them if they're important.
Yeah, if there are freestanding items that don't kind of bleed into anything else, that would be perfectly great. I'd be totally happy with that. But until then, and do we have it? I don't think we have anyone in.
Okay,
Continue.
So we're going to continue this next public hearing. There's a question I see in the chat about the backland lot special permits and by Chris Lade and Alphatera at the same site. No, they're two different sites. However, both of those hearings are the one we continued. This next one we're going 40 Main Street is the one we're going to continue now. The one brought by Alphatera at the applicant's request. So if someone would like to make a motion, I believe, Todd, we want to continue that to the 26th of October.
That's correct.
I will make a motion to continue the backland lot special permit approval for 0 Main Street until October 26th at 7:15 p.m.
Second.
Very good. I'll begin a roll call vote with Peter,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
So good. Motion carries.
Okay. All right, so we have some more time to fill, I guess, here until 8:15.
We do.
Todd, is there anything on your mind that you would like to discuss that's appropriate to discuss given
No.
the agenda, or how do we hit? I don't think we've ever had this kind of situation.
This is a little atypical. Is when they gave me a ring and they emailed me over to request a continuance. I said to myself, "Well, that just gave us a 45-minute large hole." Lovely, but that is what that is. I don't have any items that are immediately pressing at the moment. I think we well uncovered just about all of them to the degree I think we can at the moment. So sorry to say I don't have anything to fill the dead air, I'm afraid.
I got a
Well, why
question.
don't we, I think since there has been interest expressed about the master plan. I think maybe just a little bit of discussion about
Fair.
where things are and where things hopefully are going
Yes,
would be worthwhile.
absolutely. Yeah, we can absolutely
Just
do
kick
that.
that off a little bit. As everybody knows, we applied for money at the town meeting. We got it. We're expected to receive additional money through the Board of Selectmen, which voted on it. So we're up to an availability of about $100,000. That's very important to us in that when we put out the RFP for a consultant, which we feel is very important at this point, there was very little response. And basically what we got back from the potential bidders was that without a definite budget, they weren't interested in risking becoming a consultant. And as a result of the increase in budget, not necessarily what would be the ultimate budget required for a consultant, we did get a bid, very competent bid from BSC Group. And they had a pretty competent layout of what their program would be. We've worked with them from the climate change perspective in Bolton, with Bolton and Clinton, with Bolton and Devens and Harvard. So we're aware of them. And eventually we signed a contract with them with the understanding that it was a two-phase operation. Basically $100,000 in the first period, $60,000 in the second period. Fairly well laid out the scope of services for all of the above. And we kicked that off with having a transfer of data from the work that has already been done by not just the steering committee, but the individual task groups, which was basically as existing conditions in the town, a lot of research on that, as well as digging into some of the discussions that have gone about in the future of those, with us understanding that it wasn't possible to completely compartmentalize the whole master plan. You can't talk about water and sewer without talking about climate change. You can't talk about housing without talking about transportation and infrastructure, et cetera. But we kind of laid that all out, and I believe they understood that. And then we've, at this point, embarked on a discussion of the roles and responsibilities of the steering committee, the town planner, the task groups, and the BSC consultants. And that's kind of where we are right now. But we have opened up our data repository, which is on Dropbox, contains all the information for the 11 task groups that have been working on that, and that's now available to the consultants. And the most important thing right now is a discussion of public outreach and communication. They have significant experience in doing that. We had put together an outline both of communication with forums, one of which we've had already, but we really need to have additional, the survey, social media, print media, et cetera. And they are coming up with a number of ways based on their past experience and their application, their media application, website application, which is an interactive application, to develop a much more robust public conversation about master plan moving forward, which is where we are right now. One of the things we're doing in parallel with that at the steering committee level is reevaluating the interest and expertise of the steering committee and task group members. As you can imagine, after 30 months plus of involvement, when we started out promising nobody would have to spend time in a task group for more than 4 to 6 months. They've been very patient, but frankly, they're very weary. And we're evaluating who wants to continue and what others might want to contribute, have the capability and experience to contribute. And in one particularly critical area, we had two very, very talented and involved students at Neshoba Regional High School who were instrumental, frankly, in helping us with media, social media communication with the master plan, providing messaging that meant not only the approach that we've used in the past, but the younger cohort, the students, as well as the young adults, providing a lot of a graphical interface, providing short messages with links, that sort of thing. So we're back talking to the high school about getting at least one additional junior, preferably, so that we have that continuity to work with the steering committee and the consultant in that interactive public outreach and communication. So that's kind of where we are. We have a meeting tomorrow night with the steering committee to continue this conversation. We've already had one, and that includes the consultant. So that's where we are at this point.
And on top of that, Bob, I've reached out to my mentor, who's a professor over at Clark and also does some adjunct work over at Worcester State as well. He found a resident of Bolton who's in the urban studies program at Worcester State, of all places. And he's reaching out to her to see if she's interested in having a little bit of a role here as a citizen activist to get involved in rallying some people to build some enthusiasm for the master plan project, which could be quite helpful. And she has that leadership quality that we were discussing that
Yep.
I think we could really lean upon. So that's an exciting lead, and I'll keep you all updated for that.
But I continue to be very confident that we have a lot of very talented people in Bolton,
Yeah.
talented and experienced in the areas that we need.
Yeah.
And we need to find them, and we need to encourage them, and we need to engage them in a particular area for a particular task, so that they don't get worn out and they feel they're contributing in their area of expertise.
Yeah.
And so that's
Because a
that
degree of
has been
fatigue.
and will continue to be a part of this engagement.
Excellent. Excellent.
So listen, if you know of anybody,
Yeah.
we're here to listen.
And the plan's only as good as the outreach that's attached to. Really, that's kind of what it distills down. The better the
And-
plan's
and-
outreach, the more actionable it is.
Just to recognize them, Mark has been an integral part of the steering committee, but an integral part of the water and sewer group, which we refer to as the sewer rats, who have put together actually a pretty detailed review of water resources, implications of water in the town. But again, that has to do with aquifers, climate change, et cetera, as well as sewage in the town and what the implications are of the existing municipal sewage treatment plant and the potential for that use in a broader sense, both in terms of town center, which is a little hard to characterize at the moment, residences, as well as potential use for economic development.
And on top of that, it can't be overstated how important water and sewer are to urban systems. I mean, that's literally what made Rome Rome, is the sewer system. That's what gave New York the ability to grip and stay and become the economic powerhouse that it became. Zoning was literally invented in London in response to a cholera outbreak, which comes from poor wastewater management. I mean, these items are completely integral to what it means to live within a built environment. And getting folks to understand, yeah, it might not be the most exciting thing to talk about, but they're existential. You cannot live and have a healthy urban system without these in place. You simply can't. So, if nothing else, we can get some
Let's
excitement.
start out. A few years back when we brought the, I think that was the cottage bylaw amendment to town meeting, and that went down pretty hard. And a lot of people brought up what the water draw would be from a bylaw like that. And we didn't, as a planning board, we didn't have great answers for it because, a specific project hadn't yet been proposed.
Yeah.
It was all just kind of encouraging smaller, denser housing.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I mean, hopefully something, because it would be nice to try to bring back that cottage bylaw at some point and have better answers for people who had questions, especially around the water usage.
Yeah.
It fit the bill of what a lot of people in town would, I assume, the master plan is going to come back with that. People want to age in place, people want to have smaller residences, be closer to their neighbors, that sort of, like the cottage bylaw checked all those boxes and people just shot it down.
It's sometimes that does happen, but when it comes to, you're in the right frame of mind. Increasing density overall is something that would be in a way that fits the neighborhood character is usually the sticking point for a lot of folks when it comes to being adverse to new development. For example, if we were to propose in the master plan, if they would say, well, we need to add some more 2-family unit buildings, that might on its face go down in a hail of glory at town meeting. However, if that's counterbalanced with the fact that if it goes through design review, and if you're looking at it from the street, it looks identical to any of the other large single family houses, and if it only has one driveway, they all share a driveway, you won't have 2 obvious punch-ins from the street line. That there makes it a little bit of a stealthier duplex, for example. And if it's not immediately detectable as a duplex, it's less immediately objectionable as long as it fits the neighborhood design and fits the form that we have bases around here. But there are ways and mechanisms around it that can kind of anticipate the friction that they would otherwise cause, and at least kind of show ways to alleviate that friction, at least from the onset. It's really often about how these items are messaged and how it's understood at the other end, and trying to defuse those preconceived notions. That tends to be the most successful way to get some otherwise adverse policies enacted, especially if it's in service to folks that are aging in place or folks that want to join this community that can't afford to do so on the single family side. Makes sense.
But yeah, I think one of the things we need to investigate and learn more about is the whole idea of the fact that there is not a contradiction between more concentrated housing and good, thoughtful, rural village design.
Yeah.
You can do both and do it very well. And to Michael's point, yes, water and sewer are critically important and they need to be investigated. And it's a big deal and it takes a lot of time. But Harvard went through this. And they came up with a very nice solution for the existing town center. They had to develop a water treatment plant that was a new one. We have one that incidentally is running at half of its capacity. And I think we need to think about that and then think about more concentrated housing, not just in the center of Bolton, but elsewhere. But again, with thoughtful design to maintain the character of the town, multi-unit housing, design review board, et cetera, but with water and sewer at the same time. And one of the challenges, and Mark can attest to this, in Bolton with respect to water, is that we have a wide range of water resources in Bolton, ranging from very difficult hard rock wells with relatively low yields to unbelievable aquifers that are actually artesian. Well, that gets resolved by very thoughtful testing and putting in a public water supply that takes the water from the right location. So that, that's an investigation that needs to be made for supply. And of course, distribution, which is not inexpensive in itself. But the other side of it, again, to Mark, that we need to think about is water use. And part of it is non-agricultural irrigation. He can tell you about what it costs in terms of water volume to maintain half an acre of lawn in this town. It's pretty astounding. So that's another, that's the other side of supply-demand equation that needs to be investigated. So there are a wide range of things, but if it's done properly, we do have the opportunity for more concentrated housing, different kinds of housing, smaller housing, but able to maintain the character of the town, a village character, a semi-rural character, and maintain our open space as we have with the phosphates.
with, more.
It
depth.
sounds really simple, but it sure isn't.
As Matt say, it sounds so elegant, but like everything elegant, it's all in the minutia. It's really, that's the hard part about it. It's the finesse. It's all about, yeah.
But it takes a
It's about
lot
the
of
new-
work and a huge amount of public engagement with
Yeah.
the facts.
You have to hit all the high bars if you want to do it right. You're exactly right.
Mark, you want to comment about water?
No.
No.
I can't imagine what it would cost to hydrate a lawn at half an acre. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's about the equivalent of having 2 or 3 additional houses, if I remember.
My God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I
really,
I believe it.
it's an amazing amount of water that goes into it. Just for reference, the list of potential town meeting articles was in the June 8th packet.
June 8th packet. Thank you for finding that.
Yeah. And there's definitely some in here that have nothing to do with nothing to do with master planning. So, we
Items
town
that
meeting
can
may not get
freestand.
lucky and have another year without planning board articles. So,
Well, if we can find some that are, clearly freestanding, I say we go for them, honestly.
there's something one here like the revising the sign bylaw and bringing it into compliance with Reed versus Town of Gilbert.
Yeah.
Among other things, and some other things in there about so there's a bunch of stuff there that is probably worth looking at.
In the
You
sign
don't want
bylaw,
you don't want town meeting to use not having anything from the planning board.
yeah, they're not used to that, you said?
No, and we don't want to let them get used to that. So,
Yeah, I mean, the sign bylaw, I've had a couple of interactions with it now, and I've been here not even a month. I've had a couple of iterations, a couple of interactions for that. And it's really, I don't like to besmirch regulation, but it leaves much to be desired. It doesn't have a lot of thoroughness, and that bothers me. But either way, there's plenty of room. There's plenty of room to improve, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taking some notes. Excellent. So we still have.
Now, getting back to the master plan though, and resources we could use, if anybody has ideas of people who we could get engaged in the master plan. I think we on the steering committee, and certainly Todd, Brian and I would be extremely appreciative.
Oh gosh, yeah. Really, if we have folks, as Bob mentioned, if anyone shows even a glimmer of enthusiasm for something like this, if you get me talking planning, as any of my friends and my gal will attest, I will talk your ear off. I won't shut up about it. So if we can get anyone here in town that expresses any interest towards adding a voice to guiding Bolton for the next 15, 20 years, have them get in touch with us. And I'm sure we'll find something within this pretty grandiose kind of spectrum where they'd be able to plug in and find something fun, something intriguing. I think they'll find
And the specific elements of the master plan are up on the master plan website, on the town website. Take a look at that. And if anything pops up or anybody pops up, please let us know.
Yeah. All said. Okay. Let's see anything else. It's interesting. When I first came on, I'm like, oh, they actually have time slots for all the hearings. This is lovely. Now I feel terrible because once the middle domino decides not to show up, it makes everything kind of a little clunky. But what can be done? But at least we got all the other items more or less all set.
Yeah, I mean, usually when this happens, there's several business things that we go and fit in,
Yeah, and we've kind of,
heavy on the hearings and light on the business, so.
Yeah.
But
That's okay.
Where do we stand on the marijuana permitting, both production and retail? I know you're new to this, but I'm just
No,
curious.
I've dealt with 935 CMR 500 in other towns. But when it comes to here in Bolton, the last mention I saw of anything related to cannabis was all of the host community agreements going through select board. There are several other communities that have excellent cannabis bylaw regulation in place that we can easily draw inspiration from. And if you like, I can assemble something like that for next meeting.
Well, we passed the regulations,
Okay, good.
you know, and they had a couple of hearings on it. And passed them after that. But
Excellent.
I'm curious whether, in terms of progress with respect to the production operation, as well as what's going on with the country cupboard and the retail.
Yeah, the last I heard was kind of the same, Bob, from you know, that a couple had gone through the host community agreement process and were expected, you know, to come for permitting sometime soon. That was a couple months ago from Don and Valerie, probably in earlier August or so. So I think I haven't heard anything new since then.
Were they there just for retail, indoor cultivation, outdoor
So
cultivation?
I believe one was for indoor cultivation
Right.
and one was for retail.
Okay.
I think they were separate applicants. I'm not 100% sure of that.
That
I never
makes sense.
saw any info.
I do keep abreast with some of that for some of the economic development entities I'm tied into. And I did see that the price per pound of flour has kind of taken a steep dive in the most recent months. So that might affect
okay.
the calculus for in terms of operation. So that might be what's giving them a little bit of wet feet when it comes to trying to break or expand. It's hard to say, But if anything comes through, you can be darn sure I'll fill you all in, but nothing yet.
I see we have a member of the select board joining us. I wonder if Mr. Sikansky has any comments.
Oh yeah, I just noticed.
Thank you very much. It's been fascinating to listen to. But no, I don't have any observations or comments about anything right now.
Thanks, Bob.
I feel awful for running out of something to talk about because usually my gal can't shut me up, but here we are. Yeah, it's nice to know you can laugh at me. I appreciate that. But yeah, when it comes to any other items, I'll dig into the packet that you mentioned, the June 8th packet. I'll dig into that when I get into the office tomorrow and see if I can pull from that anything that is relatively freestanding and won't kind of bleed into any of the master plan ideas.
Yeah, there were a few things that Valerie felt were pretty, you know, things that she felt were kind of low hanging fruit, easier things to do that she kind of aligned with. So, you know, we definitely would want to get your perspective on whether you feel the same way.
Sure.
About a few of those things that she felt were kind of like, you know, because we had a lot of ideas and, you know, she had a lot on her plate and was kind of talking the same thing. We didn't want to do more than we had the bandwidth to support. But there was a few she felt were pretty straightforward and, you know, felt pretty strongly that we should make these changes. But of course, you know, you might have a little different perspective.
And Valerie and I are very different types of planners. I mean, every planner is a generalist, often with a specialty. She and I are different flavors of planner, but I respect her acumen extremely highly. And I'll go over and see what recommendations she has. I'll get into a conversation with her, ideally tomorrow, and see if she can I'll try to poke her brain and see exactly what her thoughts were on each of these items from that packet there. And if we see any that are pretty easy swishes, we should take the shot, I think. Especially if we can get the language and everything else put together in time for fall meeting. I think it'd be silly not to, honestly. We should do it. But of course, it depends on the item at hand and exactly how easy of a swish that shot is. So it really depends. Again, like I said before, I don't like simple solutions to complicated problems, but if this is a simple problem, then a simple solution often works. I mean, Occam's razor is kind of a thing for a reason. But aside from that, I'll get in touch with her tomorrow and see if any of those particular items are low-hanging fruit, and I'll pass that along. See if she's in tomorrow. So we still have, gosh, 13 minutes. Let's see here.
Hey, getting back to the select board and master planning. Mr. Sikansky, do you think it would be worthwhile in the next month or so if we briefed the select board on where we stood with respect to master planning once we get our arms around the consultant? Not literally.
Yes, I would like to hear any updates that you have. The agenda belongs to Stan now, but
Right.
I would think, I think we said anytime you have something, be, quick to come back to us last time you were in. I think you were in
Yeah.
this spring, right?
Yes.
Oh, and that,
I think we're in a key transition point here. And once we have a handle on what that transition is, a better idea, I think it would be appropriate to brief both the select board and, certainly our board here.
Sure.
which
Tomorrow, your meeting of the master planning group is at the same time as our select board meeting.
Yeah.
So if there's an opportunity to do an update, just contact Stan and get on the agenda,
Okay, we'll do.
or Jenny, whichever.
Okay.
That would be good.
That does remind me, I'm so sorry to have forgotten until now. I did recall seeing that Valerie did write for 100,000 in ARPA funding to see if that could be the second half of the phase 2 to finish off the funding of the entirety of the master plan project. So even though the entire bill as it stands now is around 160, 170, that would give us around $25,000 to $30,000 of breathing room in case anything runs over or if anything else needs to be included semi last minute. Again, we haven't been awarded that fund yet, but it's still, they'll be letting us know in the next week or two. I would say by mid-October, we should know the standing of that. So for
And what, for public information, we basically hedged our bets on that and said that for the first year, we have 100,000.
Yeah.
With a combination of what was allocated at town meeting and what we would see from the ARPA funds, even though potentially it would be significantly larger.
Yes, exactly. And that was a wise way to go about it. But it just came front to mind as soon as that was mentioned.
Right.
I have a question through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Thanks, Pete. Please excuse my ignorance because I might not have been on other planning board meetings, but Monterey Way, are we all done with that? Is everything been squared away with that whole project?
That's the Keys Farm subdivision, right?
Correct.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Not at all.
And sorry, my printer's going in the background, so if you can't hear me well, I apologize. No, that's still very much outstanding. We haven't heard anything from the applicant for some time. All the communication actually goes through
Council.
lawyers now, through our town council to the developer's lawyer for some various reasons there. And the current situation is I believe the deadline for completing the development is sometime mid next year. I think it's July. So our town council has basically advised us that we have to wait for that deadline to pass before we can take any additional action. We do periodically reach out, through our town council to see if they want to provide us any update, which Valerie always would say she hadn't heard anything. And then if any, of the residents send in, questions or things, they're kind of stored and archived. So it's definitely very outstanding.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Is that a particular project in which we, and I guess Mark brought this up earlier, need or could consider revisiting the bond through a cost to complete?
you know, possibly, I mean, I think, you know, one of the problems with that project so that project, we still hold a significant bond, right? Whether we hold enough to complete, that's another question, right? But that project, I think one of a different issue is, you know, as the lots were sold off, right, prior to completing the subdivision, the developer basically took the perspective of, well, those are private lots. So the fact that there's drainage issues or you know, problems there is, you know, the responsibility of the owner, or the owner's done landscaping. And so I think one of the issues with that one, I mean, you know, potentially still the bond issue, but is, you know, at the end of the day, the way it works, I mean, the developer is responsible until the project is complete, right? But, you know, if private, you know, owners of lots are doing their own stuff and they're saying that, you know, then it kind of creates this finger pointing thing that they come to us with, right? Like, which I don't know that there's an easy solution to. I don't know if there's any solution to that, but, you know, because, you know, we could say, oh, there's a drainage issue with this particular lot that, you know, is not performing according to how you design the stormwater management. But the developers kind of says, well, it's their problem. I sold the lot, right? They signed whatever they signed. And so then it gets this, you know, so I don't know, that's one thing that just comes to mind off the top of my head with that particular subdivision of, you know, kind of finger pointing when the development isn't done, but there are private owners that have already taken residence in the development. And then the other big one is, which is going to come up this year, is plowing, you know, plowing and treating the road until the, you know, that creates a decision where, you know, the town cannot, as we went through last year, the town cannot plow a private road, you know, unless it's an emergency situation, right? And you know, we went through all the options, which, you know, we just can't do it legally. And then, you know, what do you do if the developer refuses to, you know, to plow the road and the residents are coming to the town? Is that something else? You know, is there like a potential bond for road plowing, you know, or something like that? So those are the two things, you know,
Well,
like I said, that's going to come up this winter too. I don't know.
It's road acceptance, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Right.
like how can, I mean, is there anything that we can do to make sure that the citizens get road acceptance on that? I mean,
Well, the town is under no obligation to accept the road, right?
until what has to get done gets done.
Right,
And-
right. So, right.
And has there any been correspondence with that development between the planning board and or the town to get that done?
Right, so there's been no response from, once again, the correspondence goes from our legal counsel to the
Yeah.
developer's lawyer. There has been nothing that has come that I've heard of in the past, you know, since the last thing we were dealing with was, you know, the issue with plowing the road last, and some money released for some of the trees in there. There's been nothing subsequent to that that I've heard of. Basically, it's yeah, there's been nothing. So I don't know what might be going on, you know, legally behind the scenes there, but nothing that's come to the planning board's attention for that.
And
And
I don't mean to put you on the spot, Pete. I was just
No. I mean,
no,
and to be fair, that's something that once I became the chair, you know, for both the challenging subdivisions that we've dealt with, every time I would meet with Valerie, I would ask her if there was any new info, and she was pretty much reaching out like about once a month, right? She would reach out to the Century Mills developer, or she would reach out through town legal counsel to the Keys Farm developer to basically say, do you have any update? Can you provide an update to the planning board? And for both of those, we've gotten no response, no significant response here.
No. It's unfortunate.
Is the
Yeah.
primary issue at this point discussions between the individual homeowners and the developer over drainage? Landscaping?
There are a lot of different issues up there.
There's a whole punch list.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole, one of the things that happened up there was a lot of loam was stripped off, and then minimal to none was put back in a lot of places. Like he loamed the front yards, but didn't do anything in the back. There were some issues around driveway construction, and what's shown on a driveway permit was not necessarily what was actually done. So it's kind of like, okay, we're going to put the driveway here, but they put it in somewhere else and just said, well, live with it. Without impact. So I think some of the things that and I think some of the things that Valerie was talking about was, do we need to add, beef up some of the development bylaws that, to specify, like minimum loam, throughout the cleared area of a lot. Do we need to, basically add in that, the driveway that's shown on the driveway permit is what has to be developed? That it's not just a suggestion, it's actually, like every other permit, this is what they're actually going to do. Strengthening up the overall subdevelopment bylaw to clarify that until the town has accepted the road or the homeowners association the road has been handed over to the homeowners association, that the developer is responsible for plowing and other things like that. There were some things like that Valerie was talking about, and again, and some of those things are, again, not something that we, that we'd need to wait for master planning on. Those are certainly kind of, very, administrative, planning board, permit specific things that, we should, I think we should, maybe some things we need to look at. Whether they're simple bylaw, simple kind of things, whether they're just bylaw changes that we can take care of, or whether they need to go to town meeting. Those are some things that we should be, even, the other thing is that the residents there want to, we're asking about putting up a mailbox, which is not something that we've historically required on the subdivision plan. There's a cluster box for, down at the entrance to the development, or whether the intention is that they'll all have, individual, each house will have individual mailboxes, and, that needs to be clarified with the postmaster, what their plans are there too. They, in this new subdivision, do they want a cluster box at the entrance, or are they okay with individual mailboxes? And if it's a cluster box, do you have to have, a pull off so that people can get out and get their mail without blocking the road? It's got to make sure that there's no drainage issues, or, there's a whole bunch of things like that. They have to, come into play on some of that too. So, sounds like a simple thing, but, it can get messy pretty quickly too.
Yeah. It's really,
Out of curiosity, who pulled the driveway application? Was it the developer or the individual homeowner?
Developer pulled the driveway, but then I forget whether the driveways that were put in, well, like I know like one of them, it showed on the permit, it showed a 12 foot paved width, but then they only put in 10 foot. you know, yeah,
It just starts there.
it just starts there and it goes downhill. And places where, they said, okay, this is what, this is where the driveway is going to go. And then, they got in there and, whether it was like, oh, well, we'd have to move a little bit of dirt there. So just go around it, or, whatever it was, where the driveways ended up, where the permits were, what the permits showed didn't match.
I would love to see, if we ever, I would love to see as-built and how they conform with what they originally presented. I think it would be kind of illustrative there. Yeah.
But the as-built, I mean, the as-built don't necessarily show what's now the private driveway. It's just showing where the curb cuts are.
Okay,
I mean, so I
You
wonder,
asked
is that
simple things, but the answer is no. There's a lot of stuff up there.
And
Yeah.
Mark, you're right, but I'm just wondering, before we move forward, can we just, it seems to me, I've been on this board now for 5 years. Or plus or minus, but it's just like, can we clean up is it a possibility to clean up 2 developments, Century Mill and Moderator Way or Keys Farm, before we move forward with anything else?
You mean,
I feel for the people, for the citizens that moved into these areas that are just, they're like, what can we do to help them out? Is
Yeah.
also the question.
This involves waiting, sadly.
Yeah, so for Keys, for Moderator Way, Keys Farm, they're really
Court.
there's nothing we can do until that deadline expires
Mid
mid
next year. Yeah.
right? That's the next thing, and that we kind of have to wait until that passes, and then there's some things we can start to do after that. For Century Mills, that one is something that we can potentially do some stuff with sooner. And I think we have, I don't know if it's at our next meeting, one of the issues that we need to address is related to the payment or donation for the affordable housing, where we modified the decision with a particular to change from occupancy to building permits, but we didn't have the correct information on how many building permits had been issued at the time due to issues with the electronic building permitting system. So I think and I think we're going to put that on the agenda, Todd, to discuss. One of the residents has reached out to us a couple of times about that, to discuss that as one of the items, and then to potentially discuss, since the deadline that we extended last year in September for this year has now expired, and the applicant didn't request an extension.
Yeah, I saw.
Start to now talk about what the next steps are. So I believe we're going to put that on the agenda for an October meeting to talk about it a little more.
That makes sense. And I would like to get some more conversation from at least some correspondence from town council. Ideally, they'd be able to give us something a little bit fresher than what we're all working off of. I did see that there's some covenant lines. Yeah, looking at this here, he hasn't responded to requests since, January of this year.
Right.
It's been going on.
And
almost
the
over a
biggest
month.
challenge with this one is we don't hold very much in the bond, and our peer reviewers actually owed a significant amount of money. So
Really?
even
Almost $6,000, I believe.
pulling the bond, a bunch of it goes to that, and then it's a question of, well, what do we have and what needs to be done to finish the development? But I think we need that. To your point, Jim, that is a discussion that I think we are ready to soon start having, to see what we can do on that one.
Good. Thank
And I
you.
do know the finance department down here is in the process of, they haven't paid taxes either. All those items are in title. So I know that that's a process on its own.
Oh, they're in trouble with the EPA. They're
Oh, yeah. I mean,
a whole deal.
from A to Z, they're in trouble with everything. But if the town does happen to get ownership of some of these buildable lots, then if real estate prices hold, we might be able to sell those lots, and that might be enough to kind of give us the capital we need without going to the townsfolk and asking for money at meeting. So there is some light in this tunnel. I just don't know how far it is away, to be quite honest. I don't know.
Are there a number of things that we could identify that would preclude this from happening in the future? The driveway issue, the loam issue, things like that, that would be reasonably, dare I say, easily implemented as regulations or subdivision regulations that would preclude it from happening in the future, because this is pretty common stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
that's, Bob, you're right. That's what I mean. Is it like we're going through a master plan, and it seems to me like we have to clean up a couple of things on our end, or a couple of developments that have been happening to go forth with a master plan, and to be smart about going forth again with a master plan.
Well, James, that's the frustrating thing, is that of all the municipalities I've worked for and all the ones that my mentor has worked for, these failed and quasi-failed subdivisions occur regardless of the status of the master plan, whether it's new or old or somewhere in the middle. These failed and quasi-failed subdivisions, they do happen despite best efforts.
Well, we all learn from our failures.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately, unfortunately, that's what happens.
Mhm.
And what frustrates me the most is that, we have citizens that are very smart and very proactive, and they're just asking the questions, and we just have to make sure that we have the answers.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we have the ability not to they may not understand legal counsel, but ultimately at the end of the day we owe them an answer.
Yeah.
And that's the most frustrating part, that this stuff is going on all the time. And I was fortunate to be a part of the very first meetings about Keys Farms, and there's some things that happened, and this, that, these, and those. We said we can't work on Saturdays, but then they worked on Columbus Day, this, that, and it's just, it's loopholes and everything else like that. And I just think we need to clean some stuff up before we move up. We have a due diligence to our citizens.
Yeah, I agree.
all I'm saying.
I think you're right. I mean, part of the problem though is, we've had multiple other subdivisions that have gone through, gotten permitted. We never hear from anybody, and then they come back
so
and say,
smooth.
okay, we're all
smooth.
done. Can we get our bonds back? And they've just, they've gone in, they've
Yep.
got the permits, they just work through it and you're done.
Yep.
So, how do
Hours.
how do you regulate against a bad apple?
I know.
How do you regulate against somebody who's gotten in over their head?
Unfortunately, the biggest ones are the biggest.
Yeah, and it's tough too when, if you have a developer that doesn't really want to work with the board, right? I mean, we're kind of always open to, as things come up with a project, to talk about options or alternatives, and kind of balance concerns from residents with, we understand, finance, the developer, they're in the business to make money.
Yep.
And developers that, even in challenging situations, that want to come and meet with us and talk and work with the board and find resolutions to the problems, even if our bylaws aren't perfect, or there's kind of things with individual projects that you can't cover everything, right? Having developers come and work, we can work through it, right? But when it gets to the point where developers just are unwilling to work with the board, that makes it really difficult, right? Because we have limited, we have things we can do. We just don't have things we can do necessarily quickly, right?
I know. We have been more than flexible.
Oh yeah.
More than
We
flexible.
always are, right? We always are, right? But it's tough when you get so, but I definitely agree, Jim, that in every, we absolutely need to learn from, and in my time on the board, I think the first board meeting I came to, Century Mills, was on, a subject. It had started well before that, right?
Yes.
But, and so we have, always tried to update some of the bylaws, to address things that have happened. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Like what's went wrong, what can we do to try to avoid those same mistakes going forward, not to say there won't be others, right? So I think it's definitely important that we look at some of these things as we think about future changes.
Yeah,
No, I agree.
I will speak to some of my colleagues and seeing if they've been in similar situations. I imagine most of them have, but I would like to see what way out of this particular predicament they found that worked, and what gave the town and municipality or city, whichever they happen to work for, the leverage they need to actually effectuate some change in a way that helps people, because that's why we're here.
Can we put together a list of lessons learned from Century Mill and Keys Farm and identify those that can be resolved reasonably across the board, without getting to the business of complicating our regulations to try to figure out how to stop the bad actors all the time? I guess my background is in lean process, and there's an expression in lean process that you should never design for failure, which means that you should not increase the size of your regulations to reflect every individual who wants to get around them or is stupid.
Yeah.
And regulations get huge
Yeah.
and unmanageable when you do that. But if there's some simple things that we can do, and also enforce certain elements of the regulations, for instance, as-built for driveway permits, things like that, that can resolve these problems. And then perhaps, loam cover and drainage and that sort of thing may be sort of intermediate ground, but needs to be addressed in a broader sense. But it'd be nice to go through that list and decide what we can deal with in the near term on a reasonably straightforward basis, and what needs to be thought in aggregate in overall subdivision regulations in a bigger picture. Kind of
Yeah,
nice
you're
to
right, Bob.
pick through
I mean,
that.
We have been, at least on, since I've been a part of this board, it's like OSHA standards, for every stupid thing that a contractor or general contractor does. It's like there's a reason why OSHA standards are
They're there for
there.
a reason.
And so, I mean, it's just like, but I'm wholeheartedly I just want to get this stuff to bed before we move on to develop our town. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure we can put a freeze on permitting
No, you
until
can't.
those two are
Can't
done,
do
so.
We can't.
Yeah,
No,
so
but at least
I know we
we can
can.
address some of it.
we need to look at what's gone good and bad in those and see what we can do to
Yeah,
to help going forward.
Bingo.
So, okay.
So with that in mind, we did. No one is here to appear for the Martha development, I don't believe. If anyone is here to represent Daniel Martha, please let us know, please. I don't think there is. No, there isn't.
No.
Well, it looks like, so, and this is the one we, our site visit got violently rained out last week, so.
Yeah, just a bit.
On, I believe it's Friday at 10:30, I thought.
Yes, I can check my calendar.
I believe you are correct. 10:30.
Yeah, we have that site visit at 10:30 on Friday. You're right.
is there anybody representing the developer or the landowner who's going to be there?
I don't believe so.
Kind of nice to have somebody familiar with the bounds and the layout.
Yeah.
Although a plot plan and a compass helps, but
Fair.
bushwhacking is not my idea of a good Friday morning.
No,
Wear your boots.
it's like I'm not in that kind of shape to do any kind of bushwhacking.
Well, and when you're bushwhacking, did you go 100 feet or 120 feet? And
That's right.
you just- yeah. yeah, if the bounds aren't marked, then it gets very difficult to do any kind of.
Just stands. I'm not in the office on Friday, but I'll make sure to be at that site visit nonetheless.
So do we need to continue this hearing then?
I would advocate for that, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation, Todd? To next meeting or?
Next meeting would be fine. Yeah, I would say next meeting, let's see, that would be,
Well,
Well,
yeah, 10/12. We could do that for 10/12, as long as we keep in mind that 10/26, I need time to advertise for the tree hearings that I mentioned before. And that might take a wee bit of time because it's a matter of fees, and that tends to be a little bit of a longer discussion. So I
you
would
need
say
to advertise for the 12th?
no,
If
I
it's
need
a
to advertise for
continuation?
10/26. I need to advertise for 10/26. So
So can we continue this one until the 12th?
yes, we can. That's what I was getting at. If we're gonna do it, if we're gonna continue, it have to either be for the 12th or even further out, like to the 9th. I would advocate for the 12th.
okay, yeah.
What time?
12th, and then we'll see what happens if we hear anything from the applicant before then.
What time on the 12th?
We have them set at 8:15. That's what they were due for tonight.
But do we have anything else planned that night?
Let's see.
I would say let's do it earlier.
Yeah, let's do it earlier.
Yeah, we can do it early. We could do it at that. We can do that one at 7:15 because nothing's plugged in for the 12th yet.
I will make a motion to continue the definitive subdivision plan, farmland and open space plan or residential development for Daniel Matha, Miami, Florida. For the special permit, property identified in Bolton Assessor's Map 2C as parcel 23 until October 12th at 7:15.
Second.
Very good. I'll pull roll call. Peter,
All right,
Mark,
All right.
James,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries.
all right. Well, thank you everyone for all the conversation this evening. It was a little pleasant to talk amongst yourselves a bit rather than some of the things we have to deal with. Not that that's unpleasant, but
Always a good time.
yeah, unless anyone has anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Second.
Very good. Roll call. Peter,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
James, Jim.
Aye.
Very good. Michael,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Wonderful. Very good. Motion carries.
Have a good night.
All right.
Take
Good
care,
night,
everybody.
everybody.
I'll see you soon. Bob, I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.